Okay. Yeah, so anyway, I'm going to take a few minutes and talk to you about our developer portal that we're working on and show you just kind of the pieces of content we're bringing together and some of the features, and hopefully at the end have a couple of minutes to show you an example of the site that we're working on. So, of course. Okay, so there's really three pieces that we're sort of bringing together here as we start working on the portal. Oh, perfect. Audio's off now. So we have some existing content that we're migrating over onto a new site, and also we have the new content, which of course is probably the obvious thing for this new portal. And then also we're working on doing a little refresh of the dash.org developer page to kind of pull all of this together. So I'm going to jump into first one here. This is the refresh or update of some existing content. This is the Dash core documentation that has previously lived at dashdocs.github.io. And so that page has been around for a few years now, and we've kept the content up to date, but the look and feel of it really has not aged well, I guess. And there's also some features that are in need of improvement, I'll say. And that's from feedback we've heard in the community and even within DashCore. And so that's the first part here. We're pulling that into this new site. You can see down here on the bottom, the left side being our existing stuff. The right side is the new page. And really this also is allowing us to combine both the layer 2 stuff and the layer 1 stuff, so Dash platform as well as Dash core on the same documentation platform. So we're pretty excited about this. This migration actually has already been completed. We haven't announced it really because it's targeting Dash core 15, which is heading to testnet soon, but not quite there. But the site's ready to go, and actually there's a URL at the end, so you guys can take a look at it later if you're interested. Next up, the second piece here is the new content we're building for all the platform stuff. And so we've had to evaluate a lot of internal documents and think about what the needs are of the people we're trying to get into the platform, the developers, and what really the content is that they need to see to allow them to effectively develop. So what we've ended up with here is kind of a typical layout of content where we've broken into 3 sections that you see here. Explanations are the higher level content, and this is just sort of overviews of concepts. So in this example, state transitions that Ivan and Anton were talking about earlier, this just kind of walks you through that, and it's more of a learning type of content. The second type is tutorials. These would be like how-to guides, that sort of idea where it takes you through a sequence of steps to accomplish a particular task. So it's more doing than learning, but you're learning as you do a bit. The third type of content is the really detailed stuff, what we call the references section. And this primarily consists of the DAPI endpoints. You can see a list there and all the parameters that go along with them. And this level of documentation is one that probably a lot of developers won't need to get to. As Ivan and Anton mentioned with the SDKs, a lot of this will be abstracted away, and so you'll be using an SDK. But for those of you who are interested in maybe porting the SDK or building an SDK for platform on another platform, this would be the info you would need to know how to interact with DAPI and accomplish that. And then the final piece of the puzzle here is the Dash.org developer page. It's currently undergoing a redesign right now to kind of be the entry point to get to all of this content. So new developers coming in, maybe ones that aren't familiar with Dash at all, will likely end up at Dash.org, end up on this page, and the content's being adjusted to really make sure what needs to be there is there, remove some existing stuff that isn't necessarily necessary, and just make sure everyone can get to the appropriate level of detail, whether that's the overview to learn about stuff or the low-level RPC calls or whatever they need. So this screenshot at the bottom here is just sort of notional. It's not completed yet. This is just to give you a little teaser of something to look at. So those three pieces fit together to make up the content of what we're putting on the portal. I'm going to quickly jump through a few of the features that you can expect to see on the site. These are pretty obvious for a developer page, the first being embedded code snippets. So as you're going through a how-to or looking at reference documents, it's always nice to have these fields of content where you can copy, paste, reuse. It, of course, supports syntax highlighting in multiple languages, as you can see in this image up here. Next up, this is kind of a view of the header of the page, and I'm going to highlight a few items here quickly. On the top left of the page, there is a drop-down to select the version of documentation you're looking at. So as the API evolves over time, you can still refer back. Maybe you developed on version X, or now on version Y, and you can jump back and forth and see the differences. Next up is the search feature, which you would expect to be here. I'm mainly highlighting it because it's an improvement over what is on the current Dash documentation. This is more of a full text search where the current site is fairly limited in its search capabilities. And then the final piece is really helpful for allowing you as developers or people reading documentation, if you see errors on it, typos or incorrect examples, you can use this suggest edits option. It'll drop you into basically an edit mode of the page, and you can make your change, submit that as a suggestion, and then it can be reviewed and integrated back in just to make sure we keep things up to date and as usable as possible. Yeah, we're really excited with what this site is capable of and how it's pulling things together. And so that being said, I'm going to jump in here for a quick view. For the sake of time, I'm just going to show some Dash platform stuff. The Dash core side of things is the part that I mentioned has already been migrated over. So the URL you see up here is live, it's public, and so you can take a look at that at your leisure and get a good feel for how the site will work on the platform side as well. So I'm going to jump over here. And first up, this is the reference section I was referring to. And so we have a list of some of the DAPI endpoints here on the left side of the screen. And I'm going to scroll down here and show you one of the nice features that I like about the page is the ability to try things. It's kind of hard to see from my angle over here, but so if you're familiar with OpenAPI Swagger stuff, this may look familiar to you because that's what it's based on. It comes directly out of the DAPI source, and we're importing it into the site here. And if you notice on the right side of the screen, there's a few options if you want to test it out directly, curl or whatever. But you also have this try it option. And so when I hit that, it goes out and actually goes back and pulls back some information. This is running, it's just a little server I set up. It's running on Dash testnet right now, but it has a DAPI instance sitting in front of it. So the information you see there is actually coming by way of DAPI, although it is for Dash testnet because EvoNet is not available yet. Yes. Yeah. Well, you could hit that directly from wherever right now. This is just a little server I set up for demo purposes. But yeah, that's the idea here. Just that the documentation kind of blends the line between just raw content and being more dynamic. So we're pretty excited about that. And I think I've already run over time, so just really quickly click over here and give you a quick view. This is what the rest of the page looks like. Just pull up an explanation here. You can kind of see what things look like. But as I mentioned, that Dash course site is live. It has the same header and the same layout of content and everything. So you can feel free to investigate things there. And yeah, we're really glad to be getting this ready to put out there. And thank you for joining us and for your attention.